Ben Simmons officially is holding out and not reporting to camp, stating this is the last time you will see me with the 76ers, has cut them off, ghosted them since August. Do you think we get some resolution to that story before the end of the week? Or do you think this is going to be like the Deshaun Watson stuff where it kind of just drags on?
I think it's probably going to be closer to the James Harden news where they are going to wait until they get the best offer, or they're going to wait until the very last possible chance to trade Ben Simmons. But I think probably he won't play again for the 76ers. But I do think he's going to have to sit out into the season to make it happen. The 76ers have no reason to trade him other than for a player better than Ben Simmons at this point. There's no way they can sell short on a player who is, despite his getting clowned all the time on the internet, a top 20 player in the NBA, probably the best defensive guard in the NBA. And my solution would just be put him at the 4 instead of put him at the 1. And I think everything's going to look a little bit better for the 76ers. It's also a story that's just not going to go away because there weren't very many top 20 players that switched teams this offseason. Like Kyle Lowry was the best player who really switched teams. And he's like in that like 20 to 30 range. Like he's kind of an all-star, but he makes Miami like the 4th best team instead of the 5th or 6th best team in the Eastern Conference. So this story's not going away. And since none of these stars are available, I don't think Ben Simmons is going to get moved until things get like ridiculously ugly and the Sixers have to sell short a little bit, or maybe someone's willing to offer 3 or 4 first-round picks for Ben Simmons, and the Sixers just use that down the road to acquire another superstar. But the Sixers are too good right now to punt on that. I love that Ben Simmons says that I don't want to play for the Sixers anymore, and the Sixers are looking at him like, we're trying. We're really trying here. There's nothing we can really do about it. No one's willing to offer a Damian Lillard or a Jokic or even like a Jaylen Brown for him at this point. So it kind of leaves the Sixers in limbo, especially considering most people think Ben Simmons is a fully formed player at this point. Like there's maybe a hope that he could become a top 10 player down the road, but most of that hope is kind of fading as he gets into his mid-20s and hasn't shown significant improvement since he was 23. So I think most people think this is the best version of Ben Simmons that they're going to get, and therefore they're offering a lot of CJ McCollums for him, Porzingis and picks. The Kings won't even include De'Aaron Fox in the deal, which I would say it's a good move if you do, it's a good move if you don't. The Kings are going to be fine either way. So I think this is going to play out for months. I have a feeling right now. What's today? September 21st. Yeah, I'd say this plays out into November at the very least with Ben Simmons.
November with a firm holdout. Yeah, no, it's just tough to move Ben Simmons at this point because of the type of enigma he is. And now you have this extra added narrative of what type of character are you getting if you're a team that's trading for him. Obviously, whenever you hear about a player wanting out of a situation, you have to ask yourselves, what are the factors and what are the reasons that this player wants out? What are the reasons that this team would not want him? And then trying to attribute value to that player based off those inclinations is not something that a team or a GM is able to easily answer. Your instinct is you want to offer lower, you want to sell low, buy low on a player of that nature. But obviously, if you're the Sixers, you're coming at it from a completely different angle. You're still viewing him off of his potential that we've talked about for many years. But as you mentioned, he's starting to get into that latter part of his career, and the lack of improvement in the last few years is why that it's such a negative connotation surrounding Ben Simmons. Like, so many players have made huge improvements. And I mentioned on a recent podcast not too long ago that I'm starting to give a lot more patience to these young guys. I was one of the most impatient people when it came to guys like Trae Young, who surprised me this year, or, mentioning a couple others, Jason Tatum or other Zion, Devin Booker, guys who had excellent stat lines, but their teams didn't win or something just didn't come together for them. I started giving them a little bit more benefit of the doubt, but it was obvious that the improvement was there. With Ben Simmons, he was great as of a few years ago and kind of hasn't gotten much better since, and particularly in the areas that people always criticize him for. You would think you have one definitive flaw that should be your primary focus, and yet that area has even gotten worse. I mean, the free throws from last year, for an NBA player to have, I think it was something in a 30% free throw shooting percentage in that series against the who they lose to last year, the 76ers.
It was Atlanta.
Yeah. What was 30%? So if I'm not
I think
right,
it was
his
27%.
Oh, great. So I was going higher. I was giving him a little bit more of a boost, but coming in with the real facts. But either way, that is putrid. And like you said, it could drag. It could get pretty ugly here. I don't think it helps also being in a market like Philadelphia, where there's a lot of pressure on both the player and the team, and tempers will really be high. Who do you think is most at fault here? Simmons, Doc Rivers, Joel Embiid for their comments, or the 76ers organization as a whole?
I don't know if it's anyone's fault here specifically. I talked about this when the series ended last year, because I'm glad you mentioned the Hawks series, because that's the thing that's like recency bias. It's the last thing we remember was Ben Simmons passing up a wide open dunk because he didn't want to shoot the ball or go to the free throw line, and having 0 points in the fourth quarter of game 4, 5, 6, and 7 of the end of that series. It's the thing we remember most recently for Ben Simmons. And had Philadelphia not blown in game 4 in Atlanta, if they had not blown a 24-point lead in the fourth quarter and blown a 19-point lead in the fourth quarter against Atlanta in games 5, I want to say. So games 4 and 5, they had a 99% chance of winning and an 87% chance of winning those games, which if you add those two together means there was 789 chance that the 76ers don't win that series against the Atlanta Hawks. So I'd say that the reality of this is just a ridiculous fluke that led to the Sixers underperforming against a Hawks team they were better than on paper. They played better than in the series. They should have won that series probably in 5 games, and it dragged out to 7, and the Hawks stole the last game from them. And so more than anyone's blame, I think it's just a crazy fluke that the Sixers underperformed last year. And we've seen the hype videos of Ben Simmons hitting 3-pointer after 3-pointer. Like it's just a mental thing for Ben Simmons. So I think mental coaching is more important than anything else for Ben Simmons. Not that he's ever going to be a great shooter. Like that's totally implausible that Ben Simmons will be a great shooter. It's just that he won't be a historically bad shooter, or even worse, not a shooter at all, because he's just petrified to shoot the basketball or petrified to go to the free throw line, which is technically the best defense for the other team, because all of a sudden on offense, you're playing 5 against 4 for the 76ers if you've taken Ben Simmons out of the game entirely on offense. So to answer your question, I don't have anyone specifically who deserves the most of the blame. It's just a weird fluky situation that the Sixers lost last year, and everyone points to Ben Simmons and say it's your fault. So maybe the organization could support him a little bit more.